Hello, welcome back to the LAMDA log. Good night, good morning, good evening, good time of day, good afternoon. Hi. This is week 3, day 5, Friday, the 22nd of May, and we're just jumping right into it. No warm up this day. So we had ensemble music with James, and he talked a little bit about our auditions. Sorry, I'm a little breathless. I just did some push ups. Shout out Sandridge. But he said, be careful with being over demonstrative when singing. Be more natural. What helps you formulate or determine your personality when looking at a scene, when looking at someone? Think about that, right? Personality doesn't equivocate character. And just like when you look at somebody, what makes you like decipher things about them, if that makes sense? And then we walk the space embodying different people, like a police officer, a pilot, a busy parent, an animal shelter person, a doctor, a researcher, a cameraman, a producer, all these different people. And there's this natural inclination to like make a big change. It's like, now I'm somebody else. But I found a lot of interest in the subtle changes. And a lot of the time I'm just like, well, they could be whatever, you know? Then the things that really change stuff are pace, gesture, posture, spinal elements, focus, and then compare and contrast. And then we can play different characters throughout our I'm an Islander thing. And so we got in our groups to work out the Welcome to the Rock. And I just kind of jumped into it because I'm like, I know people struggle at times with like leadership and things. I'm like, I'm just going to help assign out all of the solos. And so we did that. And I kind of became a director and assigned up parts. And then another person kind of was giving music notes and making sure that we were doing it out. And then another student really focused on kind of character and the idea of the ensemble and how it's going to be portrayed. So it'll be great. We're going to perform them next Friday, of course. And then we had movement theater with Nicoletta, and we discussed what works better, stepping in first or moving and warming up, and then stepping in to like the space. And we decided that we liked to warm up and move and then step in, because Fridays are tricky because we don't have a warm up and we just get here super early. Well, I mean, 9 o'clock start to class. So we get here at 9, we get to class at 9, and then we don't have a warm up. So then we get there and it's kind of, we're a little jumbled. So we like to move before we step in. So today we focused on imprint, right? So not like Twilight, but the actual physical imprint that your body would leave on a surface. But when lying on the ground, imagine leaving an imprint in sand or in a bed or a cloud, whatever image works for you. Then see how that imprint comes with you and where you can affect it. So you lay down, and you kind of feel the different points. And then as you stand up, how can you leave that imprint? Is it still just on the floor, or can you leave an imprint in the air around you or above you? And how does that affect you? And then I had a fascinating experience because I really focused on like deepening the imprint, like putting more weight. So I was shifting weight and seeing like how, because the more you have like more weight on a singular surface, the like deeper it would go. Just like, you know, stabbing someone is going to cut deeper than punching someone because of the surface area. Right. So, so seeing that, like lifting one part of my body from lying down has to be supported by something else. So if I like lift up my right leg, I'm doing it right now. If I lift up my right leg, my left foot pushes down harder to give that support because that weight needs to be supported somewhere else. And then that imprint would deepen. So the ground, Oh yeah, had to be supported by something on the ground, by another body part or muscularity, right? Like if I lift both my legs up, that can be pushing more weight onto like my sit bones, or I can be holding it with my abdominals. So it's just fascinating. I was really leaning into that. Also, this whole week it's gonna be like 90 degrees, but LAMDA has AC, though my bedroom doesn't. So then we stood up and explored the space as if it were the world of Macbeth. And I was at first, I kind of imagined that I was the dagger. And so I kind of stood like here and I really focused on putting all my point into just my toes. And I was like, I am the dagger. I am this cutting point where all of my weight is into this deepening one spot. Then I was Lady M, walking and shifting weight. And then I thought about like walking as I lift one leg, more pressure is on one, but then it balances out with the other. And she is in need of Macbeth to move forward, right? She takes a step forward, but needs the support or balance of the other leg to do so. And then you need to, and then I focused on her hands and the symbolic imprint that the blood leaves, and then what mark that imprint leaves, what's permanent. And there's a psychological imprint. And then I also explored a little bit the force of weight in falling. Like you only need to hold the weight in stagnation, but movement is controlled energy release. In the sense that like if I'm falling, I don't have to hold that energy in my other foot or whatever if I'm like leaning up, but it's the movement is dispelling that energy until I hit the wall, and then it's absorbed in there or pushed back. So that was interesting. And then the most useful thing Nicoletta feels that helps an actor is to create a warm up that helps prepare the actor to enter the world or ideas of the play or piece, and what movement is created out of those feelings and that world. And then don't get stuck in the intellectual, you just need to do it sometimes. Act, move. Then we paired up and we did simple movement to create a relational dynamic. Is that what that says? I think so. Body weight exercise. So we shared a center of gravity. We both like held each other's arms. Oh, first to do that, we kind of just leaned up against each other and then we walked the space. And so we shared a center of weight. In leaning against each other, our center of weight became like our connection. And so that we leaned and then we moved across the space. And then we did it where we were like shifting our bodies in it, but always keeping that contact. And how can you rely on people and put the weight on them? Um, and then we held arms and found that like this connection becomes our center of weight. And how can you pull and shift and move? And how does that the pulling and pushing create different shapes and different feelings? And then we did a table exercise where one person gets in like hands and knees on a table position, and then the other one rolls over them and kind of like finds their balance and idea. And then the tabletop can start moving and shifting and helping them. And then, oh, before the tabletop, I always write this thing different times and things, but before the tabletop, we did this lying down exercise where you kind of like hug them and then you just lay them down. It's like a baby, just laying them on the ground, but kind of really showing where weight and movement kind of meet. And then now looking at like Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, we kind of picked a scene and found out what like movement we wanted to go with it, to kind of like do that scene. And we did the like unsex me now where Lady Macbeth is like, go kill Duncan. And he's like, that's my friend. And she's like, if I were a man, I would do it, but you're a man, so you do it. And so what we needed was a moment of physical contact, a release of contact, and then creating space between the bodies, and then pushing and pulling, some dynamic of that. So there is a form that will be that we are starting with, like the forms of like the physical forms, not like a paper form, and a shared vocabulary that we can now use with this. And then I worked with my partner to devise it. And what we basically got was we start together, and we're like, we're in this, we both want me to be king, and then we push and we're equals, but Macbeth pushes away, and then Lady Macbeth pulls him back, and then something happens in the middle a little more, and then it ends with Lady M pushing Macbeth into Duncan's room, and then Macbeth has to finish the act himself. And then we had lunch, and then we had Practical Voice with Tamsin. And it was good. We started with creating a soundscape kind of storytelling idea. So we did a word or a sound with an action, and like ooh ah ooh was one of them. Oh, would I remember all of them? No, that's all I remember. That was the first one. Mine was me 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 me. And so we just created the sound, and then we tried to like make it connected into a story. Um, um, and then we added words to our movements, and then um, and then we and then we did just like the words individually. Um, so at first we were all going back and forth, and it was like you go through it, and then everybody repeats, and then you connect it and make it flow more together, and then you add a word to it. So like the word I wrote down the words because I remembered it was once upon a time in dreams. I knew I could do it, and I could do it very well. I was gonna win, but first I had to cross the bridge and watch the world cataclysm. But you know what? It was okay. I'm gonna save you all because it's not that deep, but it's not that easy. But I win and stand above you all to get a good night's sleep. For now, okay, wait, I'm going to remember this. We did this like a bajillion times. Um, Once upon a time in dreams. It's the second one that I'm not remembering. I knew I could do it. Who was sitting next to him? I don't remember that part. I knew I could do it. I could do it very well. I don't remember that one. I was gonna win. There was that one. Um, but first I had to cross the bridge. This is so silly. And watch the world cataclysm. But you know what? It was okay. I'm gonna save you all. Um, because it's not that deep. But it's not that easy. But I win. And stand above you all. And get a good night's sleep. For now. I got the ending. I can't remember the first couple. Anyway, that was our little silly thing that we did. Then we had a water break. And then two students led out on a warm up, kind of like floor to standing, to the articulators and voice. And we grabbed some text, Blades and Blades of Grace by Carlina Dunn. Let's see. I have it here. That is my script. Ha! Carlina Dunn. I wake up each morning desperate for another body. Instead, the house cools. The blue windows, my lone carpet, my humidifier, what I'd give to touch. Another spine, a hand, to sing into a temple. There's a cap on the world now, so I unscrew a jar of peanut butter and dip a spoon back into my mouth. Touch. And go, taste and swallow. Sweet blades of grace. I mean grass. What are words but soft patterns, routine? I swing my legs beyond the bed. I read torch, tooth, touch, crouch, crawl, crater, cranium, crash, cracker. I twist my mouth into shapes and perform consonants and vowels, my voice creaky and loud for nobody. Just daylight, a touchstone, way of measuring time. The sky softens me with yellow. The sky softens, and I am soft, soothed. Every day, I go beyond the bed only to make more typos. Grace, grass. Touch, torch. I brush the jade plant with the back of my hand. I flash my teeth into an open mirror. Tired, desire stares back. Outside, the world swells with rain, emptied of human touch. Yeah. And you can see it's like written in an interesting way that like all the punctuation is interesting. But yeah, so we did that. And we spoke it and walked the space, and we mouthed it while walking the space, and then spoke it again and see how that affected us. I paired up to discuss the warm-up and text with a couple of people, and then we discussed as a group. We got some good feedback, starting with listening to the two people who led it, their self-evaluation, and then we ran out of time for tongue twisters. They said they ran out of time that they would have added, which was mostly people saying it's like, I wish we got a little more into the words or articulators. And then we break down and understand the reasons behind the exercise. Why do you do this? Notice and understand the differences in people's warm-ups and in Tamsin's. And then together, not together, haha. The tongue root is directly under the chin, not down. So it's right here. Well, some people like are massaging here and they're like, this is my tongue root, but it's not. It's right here. And then look for opportunity to build up the sound before resonance work. Don't go too high when exploring chest resonance. Great job bringing your own language and your own images. These are all things for their warm up. We went through a warm up with Tamsin, starting on the ground and working up. I fell asleep because, of course, I did. It was so warm. It was just like, because that room did not have AC. Alas. Then we did some beach ball breathing, counting the breath in for, so just like, and then letting it drop in. Right. And then we did a counting the breath. So you would breathe in for 2 and out for 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we did it on an S. And then in for 3. Out for 6, in for 4, out for 8, in for 4, out for 10, in for 3, out for 10. And then we saw what like we built up to. And then we got some more text, the house that Jack built. And then we worked with breath like for each line. I'll pull that out next. Where is it? Hypochondriac. Have I gone too far? I feel like I've gone too far. Aha. So the house that Jack built is it goes A, B, C all the way to J, and then it builds each line. You're supposed to do it in one breath. So this is the house that Jack built. This is the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cow that crumpled. This is the cow with the crumpled horn that tossed that dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the man all tattered and torn that milked the cow with the crumpled horn that tossed the dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the priest all shaven and shorn, who met the man all tattered and torn, that milked the cow with the crumpled horn, that tossed the dog, that worried the cat, that killed the rat, that ate the malt, that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cock that crowed in the morn, that waked the priest all shaven and shorn, who met the man all tattered and torn, that milked the cow with a crumpled horn, that tossed the dog, that worried the cat, that killed the rat, that ate the malt, that lay in the house that Jack built. Last one. This is the farmer sowing his corn, that kept the cock that crowed in the morn, that waked the priest all shaven and shorn, who met the man all tattered and torn, that milked the cow with the crumpled horn, that tossed the dog, that worried the cat, that killed the rat, that ate the malt, that lay in the house that Jack built. Not too hard. I got pretty good breath support. Yeah. And then we had our 30-minute break. And then finally we had our French scenes with Marianne. And we worked individually on our scenes, working mostly on physicalizing the comedy with the chair and the stick. And Marianne liked it. She started working with another group section. With our group in a section of Cyrano de Bergerac, which will be how we introduce all of these kind of scenes. And then I wrote down some important dates. Our D-Day, which is when we perform the scenes, will be June 15th. And then our thesis will be performed the 29th through June 29th through July 3rd. And then our restorations will be performed June 18th and 19th. 18th in the evening and 19th in the 10 a.m. to 1:15. And that is the end of my story of Friday. That was the end of week 3. Hope y'all enjoyed. I'll be back again for week 4. Yes, week 4, which starts today on Tuesday, because Monday was a bank holiday and Memorial Day and Jado's birthday, my brother. So it was a hefty day of celebration. Anyway, love you lots. Bye.